Thank you very much for everyone joining us today. So today we have close to 1.5 hour session where we are going to talk about foundation of invoice capture. I'm sure many of you might have heard this news in couple of last 3 or 6 months or so, where this invoice capture is the solution which is going to help for vendor automation, end-to-end journey of the vendor automation, right from the invoices that is coming in into mailboxes from your different vendors, or maybe any kind of a manual copy. So in today's session, we have divided this session into three segments. The very first segment where we will talk about the installation part, how you can leverage the installation of invoice capture solution, how you can integrate with what configuration that you have to enable, if at all, if you want to enable end-to-end journey of that. Second, we will talk about the two key scenarios. In the second part, we will cover the purchase order scenario. But before we go there, we will also deep dive more into the invoice capture configurations, the setups, and bare minimum understanding that we should know, being a technical consultant or being a functional consultant in the area of Finance and Operation Act. Then towards the end, which is our third segment, where we will talk about how we can upload the handwritten invoice, which is the non-PO invoice use case, where in that use case, we will see how that handwritten invoice read by the invoice capture AI model, how that information can be brought forward to Dynamic 360 for finance when it comes to invoicing. And we will also see how that information being read. And towards the end, maybe last 10-15 minutes or so, we will spend some time on the questions or any doubts. Okay, so in our meeting today, we asked everyone to follow few rules. One of them is express your viewpoints and questions related to the topic today. By default, all participants will be unmuted. And so if you have any questions or any doubts, please raise your hands to unmute yourself. Then if you have any questions, you can start asking question in the chat feature of MS Teams, or maybe you can raise your hand and we will unmute you. Then we'll also request you to help us to understand if you have any specific topic in your mind which you believe that we can cover in our future sessions, because there are a lot of things are happening on the Dynamic 365 finance and supply chain both, as well as in the Power Platform journey. So we would like to see your view as well if you have any specific topic that you want to understand from our side. In terms of agenda today, as I mentioned earlier, we will talk about the introduction, what is this invoice capture is all about. Then we will touch base on the installation artifacts, what are the artifacts that we should know to be installed and to be integrated with the finance Dynamics 365 finance. Then we will deep dive into an invoice capture solution, or maybe a configuration or an app, whatever you may call it out. And there we will spend close to 30 minutes. That's how our crux of our today's session or discussion point, where we will try to deep dive and understand more on the aspect of the how we can bring the vendor information into the invoice capture solution, how we can train the AI model, what sort of information that we should have. Third, we will also see the automation, what product offers in terms of if at all, if I receive the email from my vendors, how I can configure the mailboxes, and if at all, if there is a need for manual aspects of that. We will also see in that same point, which is a invoice capture configuration, we will also see what are the status as soon as you upload the invoice automatically or manually, what status that we go through, and what information that we see until that invoice landed to a Dynamic 365 finance. We will also touch base one of the aspects that we have received from the community member, that if I do have any sort of custom financial dimension, what are the information that invoice capture can allow me to configure, or for that matter extend. So we will touch base on that aspect as well. We will also guide you, if at all, if you want to learn that invoice capture solution, what are the documentation path that you should follow, and what are the path that you should understand when Microsoft releases any new features for invoice capture. So we will talk a lot on that aspect. Then we will see a purchase order invoice journey. as soon as we upload the invoice, how that journey look like in terms of the end-to-end automation and the custom financial dimension, as I mentioned earlier. Then we will also cover the non-purchase order, which is your cost invoice aspect, right? When it comes to the AP invoice automation journey. And towards the end, we will see the any questions or any sort of open discussion that we want to cover in last 10 or 15 minutes or so. In our session today, my name is Rakesh. I'm a Microsoft MVP in business application as well as fast track recognized solution architect in financial operation app. Today I'm joined with my friends Ramit and Khizar. I'll take a pause. Ramit, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Rakesh. Thanks, Rakesh. I think it is a very good agenda for today. Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on the location you are in. I'm Ramit. Many of you may know me, or some of you are seeing me for the first time. So I am a Microsoft most valuable professional in business applications. I have around 14 years of experience in industry, in finance industry. I come from the finance domain, and also I take care of the implementation of finance, SCM, manufacturing, and all. So yeah, looking forward for this session. Thanks for joining, everyone. Over to you, Kijar.
Yeah, hi all. So I have joined this practice of dynamics about 3.5 years ago, and my journey with Rakesh sir started about 2 years ago. So this is my first session, and I wish myself good luck. Hope for a good session. Over to you, Rakesh.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the introduction, Ramit and Khizar. So without much further delay, let's understand what is invoice capture. As I mentioned earlier, I think many of you probably might have understood the subject and might already install or maybe implement in your current implementation or the previous implementation. But for those who have not still understood what is invoice capture, for those community members, the invoice capture is the app that has been built on top of Power Apps, which is driven model driven app solution, which allow you to extract the invoice data, whether it's image, whether it's PDF, or whether it's any kind of a handwritten text, and it reads the information from the various channels such as email or manuals. We will see in detail once we go there in the demo aspect. It is seamlessly integrated with Dynamics 365 Finance. What it means that, think about a scenario that you receive the invoice from your vendor and the copy of the invoice in PDF in a typical world of non-automation option where AP clerk try to fill that information as a vendor invoice, right? But when it comes to this seamless integration, the OCR technology, it's reads the information from that PDF and push it to a Dynamics 365 Finance, and that converts into your invoice header and invoice line into a Dynamics 365 Finance. In terms of the technology that has been used inside this invoice capture solution, it is empowered by AI Builder and Azure Form Recognizer. I think many of you, those who come from a technical background, probably would understand the aspect of AI Builder and how it is helping us. Then it also provides the custom AI model. By default, with the product, it ships with the standard invoice model. But if there are any situation where you have a very complex scenario of vendor invoices and for some reason the standard invoice model is unable to read the content, then it does provide the custom AI model as well, where you need to leverage the AI builder capability of Power Apps, build or train your model by your set of invoices that you do have, and create that custom AI model and attach that custom AI model in your invoice capture. So this capability that has been released by end of January this year. I think we are planning to have one more session on this, how we can leverage the custom AI model. But today we are going to stick to the entire journey with the standard invoice model. Okay. And it also does allow you to apply the intelligence as well as the flexible business rules. What it means, you can define the number of configuration inside that invoice capture app. For example, you need to define some rule that I deal with maybe thousands of vendors, and I need to define a set of rules for my set of vendors. Okay, so those sort of capability you will see in these invoice capture models. That's how not only support just the automation when it comes to mailboxes or manual, but it does also provides the flexibility to define the business rules. I'll just quickly move on to next slide, which gives you a very high level view of this invoice payable invoice automation aspects. So what it means, as I mentioned earlier, right, on the chevron, you probably would see this invoice capture, which does allow your end-to-end product receipt match, your invoice validation process, your workflow submissions. You can enable the workflow as well, and you can have this automation of the invoice posting as well. And then you are ready for your invoice payment. While doing so, it does also provide a centralized accounts payable workspace for your AP clerk. What it means that AP clerk can log in into invoice capture. They can see how many invoices that failed because my AI model could not able to read, or my image that I'm trying to upload is not able to read for some reason. So it does provide the detailed error handling mechanism inside the view of invoice capture, so that AP clerk can go and correct it manually, or maybe request vendors to resend that information of that vendor again. It does allow you to provide the status checks. What it means that as soon as the invoice that is being read by the invoice capture app, then it goes through a set of statuses we will talk about in detail in demo. However, from a finance perspective, you can also see that visibility of the status check. It does allow the collaborative workspace. What it means that if I'm a finance guy and responsible for my invoices to be post and to be settled with my payment that I receive from a vendor, I do have the capability to see the collaboration workspace so that I can see end-to-end view of that invoice capture. And as I mentioned earlier, it does also provide the workflow where you have the ability for approve and reject that particular invoice. In terms of the technology stack, as I mentioned earlier, is a app that has been built on top of Power Apps. It leverages a set of Power Automate workflows as well. We will see those Power Automate workflow and the reason behind that Power Automate workflow. It stores the information in Dataverse. It has Dataverse connectivity in the background. It uses the AI builder capability, as I mentioned, the form recognition and the AI builder model. And then definitely it has a seamless integration with Dynamics 365 Finance. Okay, with that, I'll take a pause and then I'll switch the gear and I'll show you how to enable that capability. So as I mentioned earlier, if you are new and you want to get your hand dirty, and there are few restrictions within your organization where you don't have license assigned to do that, or maybe for some valid reason you are not responsible to enable those environment, but still you want to learn this invoice capture, then I would highly recommend you can deploy your trial environment, end-to-end trial environment. When I'm referring to end-to-end trial environment, what it means that with the trial environment, you can deploy the project operation, which is your Dataverse and the Dynamics 365 customer engagement app family, along with the integration with your, the finance and operation app. So if you are still new and you are not aware of it, you can follow my path, my blog, where in this blog, I try to explain a detailed stuff of how you can deploy the integrated Dynamics 365 app, which is a trial environment. And to be honest with you, until last week, this trial environment was not having a capability for row versioning enable, which might helpful for you for the next topic, which is a co-pilot for finance and co-pilot for supply chain. But last week that has been enabled by the product team. So you can leverage that capability, get your hand dirty. From a licensing perspective, it comes with only one user trial license. So you cannot add multiple users if you want to play with that. But you get a 30 days of trial version for integrated trial environment for Dynamics 365 apps, which is a project operations, as well as your financial operation app. So assume that once you deploy this, once you follow these steps, what I describe in my blog, then you will get the app deploy in this admin portal of Power Platform. And you will see both the URL. One is your customer engagement app. Second one is your financial operation app, right? And both are integrated. When I'm saying the both are integrated, it means behind the scenes, Dataverse and financial operation app database are seamlessly integrated. So whatever information that you are recording in FNO, it will automatically sync it back either through a virtual entity as a concept, or maybe if you are using the dual write, you can enable the dual write as well. But both the environments are tightly integrated. Okay, so once you do that, then as the next step, you have to go to the resources and Dynamics 365 app, which you will see a list of apps already installed. Uh, for invoice capture, you need two apps to be installed. One is Dynamics 365 invoice capture app, as well as the invoice, as well as the finance and operation virtual entity. And why virtual entity? Because it's built based on the concept of the virtual entity. So whatever information that you will see in the invoice capture, such as your vendors and the vendors other information, those are directly fetched by virtual entities. So from a design and from architecture perspective, no data that has been staged inside the dataverse from the financial app perspective. So once you land here in this page, you will see the finance and operation virtual entity app is by default installed, and you need to just install this app. I have already installed just to avoid the delay in this session because we have very limited time. But for your information, what you can do, you can go back to the app and you can log into your app source. Once you log into app source, you can just filter with app source of invoice capture. Okay, search the invoice capture. It's a free app. Go back here and install the free app. Once you click on the free trial, it will immediately allow you to navigate to this path, and sorry, my bad, here, and then this app will be installed automatically. Currently, we are using the version of 1.4.1.0. Okay, and just to add you more on this, this is the portal, or this is the app source portal for you to see the latest information of this app. So if you just navigate to detail and support, you will see the entire implementation guide. I think in our next segment, Keezer will cover that point. But if you want to see what information that invoice capture allows, right from installation, configurations, and if at all, if you want to add some sort of customization by adding, the additional capability of custom fields, what invoice capture provides, you will see all set of information in this implementation guide. So I would highly recommend you go through it, understand it, digest it, and then configure it, right? So that you will see that end-to-end journey of that invoice capture. So what we covered? We covered the integrated environments. Then we covered the how to install the invoice capture solution by using the app source. Once it is installed, then entire your information is done. Then there is a second leg of the story where navigate to the finance and operation app, which you have enabled here in this integrated environment, and then navigate to feature management. Once you navigate to feature management, you can filter with your invoice capture. So I have already enabled the invoice captures. That's the reason you will not be able to see just filter with invoice capture as a feature here. See, once you enable the invoice capture, automatically it allow you to enable set of parameters in the accounts payable module, and then navigate to setups and navigate to invoice and navigate to invoice option. So basically what it allows you to enable this menu item where it will uh, allow you to set up the supported invoice type. As we are trying to cover both the invoices, one is the cost invoices, which Ramit will cover, and the PO invoice, Keezer and I will cover. And then based on that, you can set up where you want to, land that cost invoice, whether it's an invoice journal or whether it's a vendor invoice. Okay, that's how it is. By default, for our demo purpose, we have enabled the USMF legal entity where you will see the legal entity information such as vendors and everything that is already been captured and configured and synced with the invoice capture app. But we wanted to showcase that capability. What does it mean by sync legal entity? So what I'll do, I'll just quickly add the legal entity for UK, and it's GB.
Is it okay?
Yeah, Kizar.
No, I think that was Ramit, I will.
Okay. So I'll
No,
just
no, no.
add
I
a
think there is some
GBSI.
issue in my network.
Okay. So I'll just add a GBSI just to give you a glimpse of how that information works. And then accordingly, you can save that information. I think I have not configured it. So maybe Retail one. I don't know. Okay, let's do one thing. I'll remove it. So what I'll do, we'll use a USMF company because I already configured the document type as a file for USMF, and I don't want to spend the time over there. What I'll do, I'll just create a new vendor which Keyser will cover, and we'll see how that vendor sync it back with the invoice capture. Okay, that way we'll understand how that sync capability works and how that attachment also get transferred to the Dynamic 365 finance app. Okay, so with that, I'll take a pause and then I will hand over to Keyser for the next segment of that activity to be covered.
Yeah, thank you, Rakesh. I hope I'm audible and my screen is visible.
Yeah, it is visible.
So
Yes.
I'll be
Go ahead.
covering the invoice capture configuration. Thank you for setting the context, Rakesh. So first of all, we'll have a look at we installed the invoice capture so far, and we have done some configurations within the finance and operations dynamics for invoice capture. We will now navigate to the original application that we installed, and we will look at some configurations, bare minimum configurations that are required so that you can upload an invoice and the automated process is triggered. And then I will upload an actual purchase order invoice, which will be read by the AI solution, and we will see it in a real time running. And then I will talk some more about custom financial dimensions from the guide that Rakesh showed us about custom cost invoice. So let me navigate to finance and operations. And once you install the invoice capture application in Power Apps, you can see it in your apps section under the Power Apps, and you can just click on this play button and it will open something like this, a dashboard. Initially this dashboard will be empty, but since we have uploaded some invoice, that is why you are able to see some charts here. But once you open this, you can see some segments here, captured invoice, receipt files. But we need to go through the setup first. Before uploading any kind of invoice, we need to go through the setup, make sure that the setups that we require as per our organization, as per our customer needs, we need to go through the setup. So here you can see there is a small chart here. You can just click on this and click on setup system. And under the setup system section, you will find all the configurations that we'll be going through. So initially we'll go to the get started page. So if you are at the get started page, it's a um, very simple flow from there. It will guide you step by step what to do, and it will help you navigate through different configurations, and it will help you set up the whole application. So I will first go to system preference, and here you can see whatever configurations that you have defined, are those configurations currently running or not. So in the configuration group, we'll talk about what the configuration group is. You can see here that the AI builder model is invoice processing model. That is the standard invoice AI invoice model that the solution comes with. As Rakesh said, that the custom invoice model is also available. And once you create that custom invoice model, that model will be available in this dropdown. Then there is a channel for file upload, which means what are the different channels through which you will be accepting the file within invoice capture. Some of the channels are SharePoint, Outlook, but we have not configured those channels because those require licenses, Outlook for license and Power Automate licenses, because this whole automated invoicing thing works on license for Outlook. So we will manually upload an invoice and we will see it in action. Then there is a file filter. File filter consists of a configuration like what are the files that are allowed to be uploaded in the invoice capture solution. So we have PDF, PNG, JPG, and all these kinds of files. So only these files will be read by the invoice capture solution. Any file besides this will give an error, will throw an error. Then we have a configuration group. I'll talk about configuration group because this is a big part of the invoice capture solution. We have continuous learning. So it is crucial that you enable this continuous learning. Why? Because sometimes what happens is Microsoft has trained this AI model on thousands of standard invoices. But sometimes the invoice that we are trying to upload or trying to get read into the application, that is a custom invoice, and the format of that custom invoice differs a lot from the standard invoice. So what you can do, you can enable continuous learning. To some extent, the continuous learning works, but if your custom invoice is too different from the standard format, then you have to go with the custom AI model. But if your format is somewhat in line with the standard format, then you can enable continuous learning, and you can use the key value pair mapping functionality within the invoice capture, so that it will help the standard model to develop a learning based on your invoice, based on your specific need. Then we will look at auto invoice cleanup. This is nothing but the invoices that we are uploading. Actually, they are getting queued into the invoice capture solution, and that data is stored in behind the scenes in Dataverse. So we need to clean up those tables as well. So after 180 days, it will be automatically cleaned up. So yeah. So here we have something like many configurations. So first is format purchase order. The format purchase order is basically if you have a particular number sequence configured for purchase order in Dynamics, then if you toggle this option on, it will look into Dynamics, make sure that the invoice that is coming in, whether it is a PDF or image, and the purchase order number that is mentioned on that invoice is in that exact format that has been configured in Dynamics or not. Then we have something called as a confidence score. So confidence score is nothing but whenever your invoice capture solution reads the invoice, it marks particular fields with a percentage. That percentage is called as confidence score, meaning it marks a field about how much confident it is about that field and where to map that field within the solution. I will talk more about this in real time, and we will see how it happens. So derive currency code, also the same thing. It will look into the invoice. It will derive the currency code for the cost invoice, which is a non-PO invoice, and validate unit of measure for purchase invoice. Same, the unit of measure in your invoice, if it is different for a particular item, then it will throw an error in the invoice. Then total sales tax amount as well in the invoice. If you have a total sales tax amount that is different from what has been mentioned in the finance and operations app against that particular purchase order, it will again throw an error, and the same applies for this validate total amount as well. So I'm navigating to manage channels now, where we talked about the different channels that are available for upload. So this is the default channel, which is the manual channel for upload. And if I click on new, you can see here I get a drop down here where I can select whether I can use an Outlook mailbox. So let's assume Rakesh is sending me an invoice. So I can configure a Power Automate flow under such conditions that if I get an invoice, or if I get a mail from certain person or from certain organization with certain email address, then a Power Automate flow will be triggered, and the attachment within that email will be picked up and automatically submitted into the invoice capture solution. You can configure the whole channel here. Then there is SharePoint as well. So if you have a SharePoint defined or a OneDrive defined, then you can do the same. Once you select this configuration, you just need to click on save and you're good to go. You don't need to configure the Power Automate solution. The whole setup is designed in such a way that it will handle the Power Automate creation, the setup, the URLs and all those things automatically. So then we already talked about manage file filters. It is nothing but it will show what are the files that are allowed to be uploaded into the invoice capture solution. Now here, this is the main crux of the solution, the configuration group. So the configuration group is nothing but how you allow your AI model to read the invoices. How much threshold of error do you allow in reading the invoices? If the threshold of error is giving, if you upload an invoice, okay, and if you're you get a warning, okay, are you ready to allow to transfer your invoice into Dynamics instead of a warning? You can configure that same thing here. So let me go to a customize, because this is a default configuration. That is why I'm not able to edit anything within there. So in the customized model, you can see needs manual review. So you can define that, okay, if I get an error, only then I need a manual intervention. I am okay with a warning coming up in the invoice solution, but I am ready to transfer that invoice. I do not care about a warning. So how will you define that? What percentage is should be about warning? What percentage should be about error? Those are defined here. So what the invoice capture solution does, let me open an invoice and if you understand. So this is a standard invoice I have created in Word, and this is just a PDF. Okay, I have uploaded many invoices already just to save time so that I can showcase within the application. Now what happens is, as soon as, let's assume that I upload this invoice into the invoice capture solution, it will go line by line, read every content in here, and it will mark some amount of percentage against each header. So against the invoice number, it will mark something like 90%. What does that percentage define? That percentage defines that the AI model understands that this header represents the invoice number, and if I need to fill in the invoice number within Dynamics or within the solution, if I need to fill in the field of invoice number within the solution, I need to pick up the value under this header. So the AI model defines that I am 90% sure that the number mentioned here is the actual invoice number. Then again it will move on to the next header, that is vendor. It will again check if this is the actual place from where I should pick up the vendor name or the vendor ID. It will allot a percentage like 90-80%, and then it will pick up this value and it will populate in the invoice capture solution. So that is how the confidence score works. And let me navigate back. Yeah, confidence score. So if you define that if you are only 50% confident about a certain header, so let's assume that I am only 49%, the AI model is only 49% sure that this is the place from where I should pick up the invoice number, then I have, as per my current configuration, it will throw me an error because I have defined that for whatever field you have a confidence score lesser than 50%, you need to throw an error. This is what my configuration says. So as much as your invoice format is aligned with the standard format on which Microsoft has trained this AI model, the more confidence score you will get against the headers. The more different your format is, the lesser confidence score it is. So based on your business requirement, you need to adjust, play around with this confidence score value and see what fits to your business. Then we have PO invoice, header only, and cost invoice. I'll talk about this. But for the PO invoice, you can see what fields are actually mandatory that I need to have in my invoice. So I can define those fields here. And if there are certain fields that are missing from here, then you can click on manage visible fields. There are some more fields that are present here, which you can add to your solution. And you can define that if I do not have a quantity, then you should throw an error. If I do not have an item number, then the solution should throw an error. That is the kind of configuration this header can help you do. Now, in the cost invoice section, as Rakesh mentioned that there was a question from one of the participants that do we have something for default dimension values? So as he mentioned that there is an implementation guide. So I will refer to the implementation guide and also show you where that default dimensions are present in the invoice capture solution. So here you can go to page 50 and you can see here that the guide mentions that there are three default dimensions that are available to play with, that is business unit, department, and cost center, and where you can find those dimensions exactly. So it says that under the configuration, you need to head over to the cost invoice section and then click on manage visible fields, and then you can get these three default dimensions. Let's assume that you have a custom dimension like a location or retail center. Then in that case, you need to go ahead with the customization. The guide also speaks about the customization under the extension header. You can see here, it has defined some dynamics classes. These dynamics classes needs to be extended using COC, and these classes work on JSON. As you can see in the parameter section, you have a JSON array. So what will happen is as soon as you do these customizations, you need to populate the data from invoice capture into Dynamics. So for the standard fields, you have that mapping, but for a custom field, you need to do that mapping yourself. So what these classes help you do is they pass on a JSON from the invoice capture. They consume an endpoint, they get a JSON, it's in the form of array, so it will be an array of multiple dimensions, default financial dimensions. Then each dimension you need to act as a key value pair. Here you can see it has defined a JSON attribute, and then each uh, element in the array is like a JSON. And as we all know, JSON is nothing but a key value pair. So you will have some key like Viz business unit, and the value against that will be the financial dimension for the business unit. So like that, you can have 3, 4, 5 financial dimensions, custom dimensions, and you can use those to use this class to map them into Dynamics and bring over them into Dynamics, and then move ahead. So let me navigate to invoice capture and show you. So under cost invoice header, you can see under manage visible fields. Here you will have the dimensions as I mentioned. It is as it is mentioned in, yeah. So business unit, cost center, and department. So you can click on these, and these will be added in here in the configuration, and then you are good to go. So manage configuration, this is a very crucial step in invoice capture. And based on your business requirement, you need to set the confidence score. Otherwise, you will always encounter error while uploading the invoice. Then we have manage legal entities. So Rakesh, I think I added GBSI and GLRT. So you can just, whatever legal entities have been added in the finance and operations in here, you can see them in the invoice capture solution only after you sync them. So if you click on sync all, it will sync all the legal entities that have been mentioned in the finance and operations. Okay. Since I've already synced that, I will not do that right now. And as soon as you sync the legal entities, you head over to the vendors section, and you can click on sync all for vendors. So what it will do is whatever legal entities you had configured in Dynamics, those legal entities were already synced. Now you're syncing all the vendors against those legal entities, and those should come into the invoice capture solution. Why do we need to do this? Because there is a mapping rule that I'll talk about in a second. Those mapping rule needs to be defined so that it becomes easier for your AI solution to map certain fields. Okay, so let's head over to the mapping rules. So we have something called as a first mapping rule is a legal entity. I have set one a USMF mapping rule. So what does this mapping rule do? So this mapping, if you head over to the invoice, you can see my company name is mentioned. That is a fictitious company, the Contoso Environment System USA. This is the address of that company. Okay. So what I am doing in this mapping rule is I am defining that wherever you encounter this particular address, or wherever you encounter the particular tax registration number within the invoice, you make sure that that invoice is for USMF entity. What does this mapping rule do? This mapping rule helps your invoice in getting helps your invoice capture solution in getting better at reading your invoices. Okay, so this is a mapping rule for legal entity. Similarly, you have a mapping rule for vendor accounts as well. So I have set up one mapping rule for Acme Office Supplies. So what I have defined here is wherever you see the vendor name Acme Office Supplies, make sure that the vendor account there is 1001. So this way, what will happen is instead of throwing an error that I cannot find the vendor account, the what invoice capture solution will do, it will come to this mapping rule section. It will see whether a mapping rule is present for this particular vendor or not. If it is, then it will directly pick up the value from the required fields. No need to scan the invoice again and again. It will just pick up the values from here and it will move on. Similarly, items. So for items, I have not defined anything because we are using standard items that are defined in Dynamics. Many times what happens is the invoices that you get from your vendors, those invoices have item numbers that are listed in their company and not in our company. In that case, that item becomes an external item to us, but we need to map that external item to one of our internal items. So this is where this mapping rule comes in. So you can define an external item, and you can say that if you see this external item, make sure that you map it to this internal item. So this is how that item will help you. Then you can also define expense types. You have mapping rules, so you can define, so if you have a particular type of expense, then you have to map it to this kind of dimensions and these kind of configurations within Dynamics. You can also do that in here. Now let's head over and see this thing in action. So I will manually upload an invoice here. I think I already have one invoice. Okay. So let me just see if I have it. Yeah, I have this. So let me print this. Since it only accepts PDF, I can only work with PDFs and nothing more. So let me write something like invoice 105 because the invoice number is 105. And I will come up here, okay, under the received files sections, and then I will click on upload files. Then here I can drag and drop the files that I need to upload, and that is this one. I will open this, I will click on upload, and it should automatically come up here. Yeah, it is in waiting status. So it will have multiple statuses. So what are the different statuses? I will again head back to the implementation guide. It's a very good reference. So you don't need to worry about anything. If you have read this implementation guide from top to bottom, you are good to go. So here you can see it has talked about all the different statuses of captured invoices: in processing, captured, in review, verified, then transferred, voided, awaiting. So there are two kinds of way that you can transfer an invoice into the finance and operations app. First is the automated way, which Microsoft calls as the touchless configuration. So in the touchless configuration, what happens is it's an ideal scenario where you do not encounter any kind of error. Okay, you don't get any kind of you don't need any kind of manual intervention. What happens is the invoice comes in via email, and you have configured a channel for email. That channel brings over the attachment into the invoice capture solution. Then the file is uploaded into the solution. It has read all the fields properly, and it has populated whatever the required and mandatory fields are, and it will just sit there under a verified status. Okay, now it is up to you. If you are in a hurry and you need this invoice to be in the solution within certain hours, 1 or 2 hours, then you can head over to the solution. You can go to that particular invoice, and you can see that the verified status is there. You can open that invoice and you can just click on transfer invoice. What it will do, it will transfer the invoice in the very next batch. Okay, I will talk about what the batch is, and you can see the invoice that we uploaded, it is now in verified status. This invoice will not be visible in Dynamics as we speak, because it has yet to go into awaiting status, because I'm trying for a touchless configuration. But if I want to see this in the very next batch, then I can just click on this invoice, and you can see I have encountered 2 warnings as well. But this will not avoid me to transfer this invoice into Dynamics, because in the configuration step, if you remember, let me head over to the configuration step. So in the manage configuration step, I have defined that I need a manual intervention only when you encounter errors. You see here errors only. I need a manual intervention only when you encounter error. If there are no errors, if there are warnings, I am good to go. I don't have any problem. You can transfer this invoice into finance and operations. So if I click on this transfer invoice, this invoice will be marked for transferring into finance and operation in the next batch. Now, what is this batch that I've been talking about? Where does this batch run? How does it pick up the invoice? So if I head over to finance and operations and let me go to batch jobs. So here there is a standard batch job that runs every hour. It is under the name transfer invoices from invoice capture. Yeah. So this is the batch job that runs every hour. You can see the recurrence is 518, 418, 618. So it is every hour. What does this batch job do? This batch job looks into the invoice capture solution, and it tries to transfer all the invoices that are in the awaiting status. You can see here awaiting status. If the invoice is in awaiting status, then it will pick up that invoice, it will bring it into finance and operations, and it will at the same time mark that invoice as transferred so that it is not picked up in the next batch. Okay, now I have already transferred some invoices because since this batch runs every 1 hour, so I have already transferred some invoices. Let me head over to pending vendor invoice and see some of the invoices I have transferred. So as you can see, I clicked on the transfer invoice, and immediately, as I said, if you are in a hurry and you want to get that invoice into your system within some hours and process it, you just click on the transfer invoice button, and then that invoice is present in Dynamics. Let me open this invoice. Okay. Yeah. So this is how an invoice that has been transferred from invoice capture looks like. It has this additional functionality of side-by-side viewer. So what is this side-by-side viewer? When that batch job runs, it not only brings the field, but also an attachment with itself. That is the invoice itself. So that you can have a side-by-side view into the actual invoice. If you have to make any changes, then you can view this invoice then and here, and you can make those changes. So here you can see, let me open the invoice and let's see if the correct fields have been mapped or not. So invoice number 5. Then I had two items, A0001, A0002, and the unit quantity was 5 and 5, and unit price was this, total was this, and the total was 380. So these are the important fields that I need to check. So let me head over to finance and operations. Yeah. So here you can see the item number is the correct one. It has picked up the unit quantity. It has also picked up the line amount, but this status has failed. I'll talk about why the status has failed and how it has failed. And here you can see, instead of the purchase order number that I had, okay, in the invoice you can see here, I had a purchase order number that was 39, but instead it took up 127. That is because this is a duplicate invoice. I have deliberately uploaded a duplicate invoice. So what will happen if you have the same invoice number and you upload that same invoice number again and again, you will create a duplicate invoice and you will start getting these kind of errors. So it might pass the invoice capture solution, because invoice capture is not bothered whether this is a duplicate invoice or not, okay, as of now. But within Dynamics it will fail, because this is a duplicate invoice. We have already seen this invoice, so we should not process this invoice. Now let's assume that you uploaded an invoice that encountered some errors. So we saw an invoice that did not encounter any error. It just had some warnings, but still we were able to transfer it without any major manual intervention into the invoice capture solution. Now, if you upload an invoice, I have uploaded this invoice which deliberately has some errors. So here you can see how will you figure out what the errors are actually. So once you open this invoice, you can head over to the header tab, this one. You can see all the errors that you have encountered. One by one, you can go through these errors, and where are these errors? You can check those here. So there are error symbols against the fields which gave the error. So you can see here. So first error is stock item without purchase order detail is not allowed. Now this is one of the, I think you can find it in the FAQ document from the Microsoft Learn as well, that if you upload an invoice that does not have a corresponding purchase order in Dynamics, it will throw this kind of error. Because once invoice capture scans the solution, it looks into Dynamics in real time and checks whether there is a purchase order present or not, because we are uploading a PO invoice. So it makes sense. So it will check whether this purchase order exists in the system or not. Now you can see here it says that stock item without purchase order cannot be implemented. So you can either change the items, you can remove the lines, okay. But how can you do that? You can click on start review. I already clicked on start review earlier today, so that is why. But here, instead of complete review, you get a start review button. You come here, and then you one by one select these fields and populate the correct data. So I can fill in GBP here. No, not sorry, GBP, USD, sorry. So the USD, yeah, so USD I have filled in. I can remove these fields. Okay, let me remove all. Because since I don't have a purchase order, what I can do is I can go back into Dynamics. I can create this particular purchase order, and then I can process this invoice. In that scenario, it will be processed successfully. And then after I have done that, I can click on complete review. So then it will be ready to be transferred into Dynamics. Yeah, you see it is saying that transfer invoice. So I can transfer it now. Since I don't have any lines, anything, it is treating it as a cost invoice type. Okay, So you can click on transfer invoice and it will be created. So whatever configuration that you have done here, so as a for a cost invoice, you are treating it as a vendor invoice, so it will appear in the pending vendor invoices. Okay, so I will not talk about cost invoice because Ramit will has more clarity on that and he will talk more about it. And this documentation also talks about the custom AI model, what we initially started in the session, that if your format is too different from the standard format, then you need to define, you need to train a custom AI model. So this document also talks about that custom AI model. You can see here in the custom AI model, and let me navigate to that particular. Yeah, so this is, so you can go to this if you are selecting a different AI model. So there are many AI models that can help you read the text from from any document. So if you are selecting any kind of AI model besides this, that AI model will not be visible in the in the system preferences. So here in the system preference, we have defined the AI model, right? Yeah. So the AI model that has been created using the extract information from invoices, what can I say, uh, pre-trained AI model, only those AI models will be available in the invoice capture solution for you to select. If you select any different kind of AI model, it will not be available in there. So here, this guide will help you step by step how to train that custom model, how to map the fields in the invoices and in the AI model, and then it will also allow you to set up that AI model into the invoice capture solution. And I think that was it from my end. Over to you, Ramit, if you can share your screen and help us understand what the cost invoice happens. What is the process for cost invoice?
Hey, hi. Hi, Kijar. That was impressive, huh? Thanks so much, Kijar, for making it really impressive and self-explanatory. Let me share my screen. So you have covered up everything. Only the small part is left, but the volume is high in this area, which is cost invoice. So what do you mean by cost invoice? I hope I'm audible, right? Someone has to confirm me. I'm audible.
Yes,
Yeah,
you are
you're
audible.
audible.
Okay, good. So when you talk about cost invoice, how it basically differentiate between PO invoice and cost invoice. So cost invoice is where there is no PO invoice, which is a consultancy fee, a rent, a salary, like this. So basically, how system understand that the cost invoice, it is a cost invoice or it is a normal invoice, not a PO invoice. It basically looks into the invoice and see there is any PO information or not. If there is no PO information, system considered it is a cost invoice. So for cost invoice, how system will create? I mean, how if there is no how to say, there is no invoice capture, then how we will account this in our system? Either it is invoice journal or invoice register, or in the pending vendor invoice without purchase order. So what Microsoft Dynamics 365 comes up with this solution? Microsoft Dynamics 365 comes up with the invoice journal uh, standard solution. So when you talk about invoice journal, that 100% that we need to understand, or we need to tell system, or need to configure the system which journal name it will pick up. So the first thing for the cost invoice we need to do as a setup is under setup, accounts payable setup, and invoice capture setup. Here you will have this option, sync legal entities, like Rakesh and Kijar has mentioned, sync all vendors and everything. And beside of that, there is a option called journal name. So this is a new feature that was not deployed in previous version, but in the recent version, Microsoft has given this functionality. You can select the journal name. Okay. So for this, say for USMA, we can select the journal name. For INMA, we can select different journal name. So system is giving you the possibility to select which journal name the invoice captured invoices or captured invoices will be processed. And then for cost invoice, we have two options. Either you can take the solution for invoice journal, or you can change it to the vendor invoice. Vendor invoice means they're the pending vendor invoice without the purchase order. For this case, the easiest solution I have picked up to showcase, which is invoice journal. Okay. So now what I will do, I will scan two invoices like Rakesh was mentioning at the time of agenda discussion, that handwritten invoice, right? And what I have done, I have picked up two invoices. One is handwritten invoices and one is digital invoices. So this is, you see, this is the Acme office suppliers with all the details, invoice date, due date, and amount. And the same invoice I wrote by my hand. Okay. So it is a handwritten invoice. So when we, when we take this solution to your customer, or if you are from an organization, you have maybe very minimum in these days, but there will be cases, there will be some customer or vendor, they will write the invoices, manually. They will not send the invoice digitally. So the question is, my is this solution capable of understanding this? The answer is yes. Though I wrote it as a capital letter, because my handwriting is not very good, so that's why I wrote it. But uh, if you write it in any language like small letter, caps letter, it will understand. So I will demo this. Maybe what I will do, I will first demo the normal digital invoices. How I will demo? I have also channel configured, but for make it faster, I will just upload it manually. So I will upload the cost invoice in the environment. Okay. And it is uploaded. And it is processing. Once by the time it gets processed, I just want to show you what is there in the invoice. So it is there is no PO. So ideally system will understand this is a cost invoice and this is the consultancy fees, rate item 56,777. Okay. And this is the vendor name and this is the legal entity, control entity system. So system will pick up everything like I have given. I will just click on refresh and it is not there, it is transferred. I will now go to the captured invoice. The system has successfully captured it. Now I need to wait whether the validation is failing or not. So it is, you see, invoice 1.1, it is processing. So I will wait for a couple of minutes because it takes up time, because there is a batch which Kidar has mentioned, which I have enabled it in the system. So I will go there all and invoice 1.1. Let's see. Oh, so what I will do, I will go to invoice journal to see whether the invoice has come up or not. So now I will open this, the last one, and you will see this has been captured as a invoice journal as a cost invoice. See, everything is picked up by the system. Vendor name, invoice date, invoice number, amount, and everything. The only thing as a user they need to do is to select the or code the ledger account here. Right. So once I'm done with this, so as a user, they will come back here and click on the expenses. They will code the expenses here and post it. That's it. That's about the cost invoice solution. So, and in short, how system pick up the cost invoice? System looks at the invoice, whether there is PO or not. If there is no PO, that considered as a cost invoice, and that as per the setup of the system, whether you configure it as a invoice journal or vendor invoice. If it is an invoice journal, it will take you, the system will take every invoices to the invoice journal based on the journal name setup. So that is all about the cost invoice. Now I will also demonstrate the handwritten invoices. Delete this maybe. Now what I will do, I will import the handwritten invoices. I will go to receive files. So don't get confused that I'm manually uploading it, because this always a standard solution. I know if someone is taking this solution, then 100% or maybe maximum of the cases there will be a channel configured channel means either that will the invoice will be dropped in a SharePoint, or the invoice will be sent to a particular mailbox, and by the flow, like teacher was mentioning, it will automatically come here. Okay. So now what I will do, I will manually upload here. So this is my handwritten invoice. I will just upload it. I have not checked it, but I'm confident that that will pick up this, because let's see. Yeah, I think it is processing. Let's see. Yeah, so it has been sent, I think, and it is in captured invoice and it is in processing mode. Let's see. So it's awaiting. Awaiting means it's basically looking for it, it has been captured. System has captured everything and it is looking for the batch to take it to the Dynamics 365. Let's see. It's taking some time, though. This is the good news that there is no error. There is no warning. So that means everything is captured correctly, except few of the information like due date is not captured. Why? Let's see. Because I think system, okay, I think due date is not written correctly or properly in the manner. So that's what system could not, but we can still give the due date or train the system to understand it. And one important is the system. I wrote it as I in V, but it looks like Y. That's why system is taking it as I in Y. The reason is in the invoice, you will see if I make it like zoom in. So it looks like a small part of V is coming down. So it's took as Y. Still in awaiting stage. Let's see. All right. Okay, give it some time. It will take us to Dynamics. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's created. I hope the status also changed here. Yeah. So if I select transferred, and in the transferred, we will see this has been transferred. And if I go to the invoice here, lines, and you will see vendor name, invoice date, invoice number, amount, everything has picked up correctly. Only few which is a because there was less confidence level, because that was in the handwritten invoice, that was INV, what it was looking like. System has picked it up INY, and the due date is missing because of the orientation, the writing way, which has basically misguided system. So these things will be there, but we always need to make sure that we keep training the system so that system understand. So for that, what I will do, I will just change this, and I will just come here. Pens maybe, and once done, I can post it. So that's what about the cost invoice. So what I wanted to show you that it picks up the handwritten invoice and it picks up other invoices which is digital, and how it differentiate between purchase order invoice and cost invoice. If there is no PO, that will differentiate, that will make it as a cost invoice. And system also has a very nice capability to understand handwritten invoices as a cost invoice. Okay. So yeah, that's it. One for from the cost invoice point of view and handwritten invoice point of view. If any question on it, they can ask. Over to you, Rakesh.
Yeah, thanks, Ramit. Thanks, Kigar. Any questions before we wind up our discussion today? Or you want to say something? Yeah, Amay, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Rakesh. Hi Kizer. Hi Rumi. Thanks for this session, and it is very informative one. So my question is, we are looking at the demo in one language, that is in English. So what about other language? If invoice is in foreign language other than English, then how it should be, how setup, what is the setup that we have to do, and yes, what is the functionality though? That's it.
Yeah. So let me try and share something. So as I remember, during my search and learning, I saw somewhere something about language. So as I mentioned, this is a standard solution. So what do I mean by standard solution? Meaning Microsoft has several customers. So they have trained this model on multiple languages. So from a language point of view, there is no specific configuration for a language. So if you are even uploading an invoice in Russian, you don't need to do any configuration within the solution. It should be automatically read into the solution. And I think in one of the FAQs I found it. I'll try to find it. And if we do, yeah. So you can see what languages of invoices are supported. For a complete list of, you can see the document intelligence page. So let me navigate to here. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So what?
shared the link in the chat as well. So if anyone wants
Mhm.
to refer, they can refer it.
Yeah, so this link will help you understand what are the different languages that the solution supports, and then you can figure out what is best fit for you.
But to answer your question,
Okay,
Amay, from
thanks.
a configuration perspective, Amay, it does not require any specific effort if you have any
Okay.
specific foreign language other than English.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any more question? I think it looked like nobody has any questions. So I think let's take a pause here. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Keezer. Thank you, Ramit.
Thank you, Rakesh, for the opportunity. Thanks everyone for joining on a Saturday, and that too early. Thank you very much for taking your time.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a nice day.
Bye.